Hi, and welcome to part 2 of English Language Paper 1, Question 3. I'm going to bring your attention to our Twitter page again, just so that you know how to locate that mock exam paper for yourselves. Please just click on this link. You don't have to obviously follow and so on. I just want to make sure that you have the resource available, but if you want to follow, go ahead. So click on this link and it should take you to this, and you'll get to see the whole paper that I'm talking about in the series of my videos on English Language Paper 1, all the questions, with Roald Dahl, the landlady. So for question 3, it says, now you need to think about the whole of the source. How has the writer structured the text to interest the reader? You could write about, and as I promised, you'll find that the question bullet points are the same, which is fantastic and quite reassuring. You always have to focus at the beginning, the change in the middle, or wherever the change is. Sometimes the change is at the very end or towards the beginning, so you really need to keep an eye out for where the change is. And finally, your structural features. So for example, you can think about all of the other structural devices available. So juxtaposition, change of tone, facts and statistics, all of these are structural techniques. Right, let's look at some model answers, okay? Thank you for your patience as well in regards to that. So what you can take away immediately, what we call in my school, is magpie phrases. So just like a magpie finds shiny things and collects them and so on, we're going to find awesome sentence starters that we can use with any text to talk about structure. So this is a student exemplar response. And what we have here, some fantastic sentences that you should be able to use when analysing the structure of any text. So the text opens with a detailed description of. You can apply that to any kind of text that you are given in the exam hall. And this is significant because the writer is establishing or creating a sense of. So please jot down the red highlighted sentence starters. Obviously, I haven't highlighted everything that you could possibly use. So do take a minute or two, even pause the video to find some more interesting words and phrases that you'd like to magpie, as it were. Okay. Just a quick refresher, structural features include time, spatial shifts, patterns. If you notice a pattern of contrast or repetition, cause and effect. So is there a particular problem presented and is the solution presented later on? Chronological order, is it a flashback? And sentence forms. Okay, right, let's look at the question. And here are some few more top tips on how to tackle the question. So you should ask yourselves these questions and tackle the question. But let's look at the student exemplar because I know you want to as well. Okay, here we were told to look at the structure of the text, and this is indeed what the student has done. The writer has structured the text with a focus on the third-person narrative representation of Billy in order to interest the reader about his life and his ambitions. A humorous tone is used at the beginning of the text to represent Billy's naivety. Now, what I like about this student's work is the student has focused on the beginning of the text, answering the question and looking at structural techniques such as the third-person narrative. There you've got this characterization techniques, the age of a character, the character's gender. These are structural devices as well, according to most teachers delivering this course of AQA. Another thing you should also notice is the student has mentioned, or shall I say the pupil rather, has mentioned the tone and how it's been established at the beginning of the text. And the student should and must compare it with the sudden change of tone later on. Let's go back to the the actual student exemplar. To represent Billy's naivety as briskness, he has decided was the one common characteristic of all successful businessmen. Look at that embedded quote. That's what I need you guys to do. The trivial narrative focus on the importance of walking fast as a measure of success seems to encourage the reader to consider if Billy has any other childish assumptions about the nature of success. Okay, so this part, really want us to focus on this part of the response. The trivial narrative focus on the importance of walking fast, blah, blah, blah. All I want you to really focus on is how the reader's response, the effect on the reader is represented in detail. It's not telling me the reader wants to read on. You don't get any marks just to tell me, oh, the reader wants to read on. Why? Why does the reader want to read on? What do they want to know? What do they know so far? What can they predict will happen next? That's when you get the marks. And here the student has jotted down the reader to consider if Billy has any other childish assumptions about the nature of success. So considering the assumptions of the reader is a good technique as a structural device. Okay, let's continue. This humorous tone in the first paragraph, however, is in stark contrast against the fourth paragraph where there is a Gothic tone. So here is the change. This paragraph is following the structure of the bullet points. This paragraph is noticing all of the changes. Stark contrast is a good phrase to use as well. Magpie that phrase. Billy has an interesting loss of control as he is no longer briskly walking. Short quotes, remember you need to use a judicious range of quotes. Instead, he is presented to be captivated in a supernatural way as he turned to go, and now a strange thing happened to him. His eye was caught and was held in the most peculiar manner by the small notice. The narrator seems to interest the reader through, so here we go back on the effect on the reader, through increasing tension over the small notice's peculiar and almost supernatural power to hold Billy's attention. The reader would be confused and puzzled. So look at this repetitive focus on the reader. This is what gets you the marks, and linking it to the structural devices used and how it affects their feelings. So here we go. Again, you can see the narrator has used repetitive references to Billy's lack of control over his mind and body. You add the quote to back yourself up, and then you think about the tone. It's Gothic imagery. You are allowed to mention a technique, a language technique. However, if you must link it to structure. Okay, so that you can say a simile has been used to create a happy tone or whatever it is, but then all of a sudden later on, this is contrasted against such and such. You can't just talk about language techniques. You need to link the language to the structure if you wish to. However, if you have a tendency to confuse yourself, please stay clear from language and just focus on structural techniques. Okay. There is Gothic imagery in the simile of a large black eye, and this seems to stand alone in the text as a whole, as there are no other sinister Gothic images in the extract. So, there you have it, a student exemplar. I'm also going to stop for 2 seconds so that you can pause the video and really look at the remaining paragraphs independently and annotate their successful references to short relevant quotes, structure, and the effects on the reader. Remember, it is an 8 mark kind of task. You know, you can extend it to 10 minutes, but that does carry the risk of not having enough time for that important 20 marker question 4.